Welcome back to the In2sports podcast. I'm your host, Evan. Today, joined by
Jake.
And today we're going to talk some NBA. We got some hot topics. We're going to talk the Philadelphia 76ers. Do they have a crisis on their hands? Zion Williamson, Jason Tatum, Giannis, James Harden. Some uncharacteristic beef, as you might say, between the two. Lakers Clippers. Who's going to win that series when it comes in the Western Conference Finals? Rockets. 8-2, last 10 games. We'll talk about them. And the trap stars of the NBA. It's that time for those trap stars, like a Bradley Beal, for example. Let's start with the Philadelphia 76ers. As we know, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, both injured right now. They're underperforming so far this year. I picked them to be in the NBA Finals. They are clearly not on pace to be in the NBA Finals. So, Jake, what do the Sixers need to do?
So the Sixers are in a very interesting spot right now. They're 5th in the East, and coming into the season, again, many people thought they could be Finals contenders, definitely Eastern Conference Finals contenders, and they're not even going to secure home court advantage for the first round of the playoffs. I think it's very simple. I think in the playoffs, when they find out that this Embiid and Simmons experiment isn't going to work, they're going to look towards the offseason, look to get rid of one of them, trade, get some good pieces. I think they need to get rid of Ben Simmons. And the reason I think this is Embiid the other night had nearly 50 without Simmons. He shows he can still be dominant. It's hard to come by good centers nowadays. You have in Tier A right now in the league, you got Jokic, you have Embiid. I mean, maybe some people throwing Towns, Gobert, not really. They're more of a second tier. I think, and for the guard category, point guard, like Simmons, you have plenty. You got Curry, Irving, Lillard, Westbrook. You got guards, Harden, Booker, Doncic, Trae Young, up and coming. Not saying that the Sixers are going to grab one of those guys, but the difference of play between the positions is just so great. I think you have to stick with your guy, Embiid. And it's a shooter's league. Simmons is not a shooter, obviously. His lack of spacing is ruining the paint for Embiid. He's so much more dominant. He is very much more efficient and productive in the paint. And I believe Simmons has better trade value than Embiid. I think teams are looking for a tall point guard who can make plays like Simmons, but I don't think he's the Sixers guy, and that's why I think they need to get rid of him, get some pieces, and look to the next season to contend again.
Jake, the 76ers have an identity crisis. We think about their strength. It's their size and their length. They have Embiid, they have Horford, even at point guard, Simmons 6'10", big time wingspan. Josh Richardson has wingspan. But they're 18th in paint points. So they don't even play to their strength. They have a young, goofy Joel Embiid, paired with a veteran, no-nonsense guy like Al Horford. Not only do they not play through their strengths, but their personalities and timelines do not match. And why I mention the timelines is because Lakers with older LeBron. Last year, they had the young, the goofy, Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma. They didn't make the playoffs. They get rid of those young guys, they bring in more veteran, smart guys, and they're first in the West. Warriors dynasty. They played with a lot of smart, middle of their career guys. Their timelines fit, they had great chemistry, and they were a dynasty. So the Sixers need to make a move. We agree on that. But I have a different move that we're going to make. We're going to trade Embiid. We're going to add a shooter. We're going to play small ball. We see Rockets. They trade away their center. They're 8-2 in the last 10 games. Playing small ball. Even if they trade Embiid, they still have the length and the defensive versatility. Because Simmons, he has length. He plays defense. Richardson, same thing. Tobias Harris. Horford as a stretch 5. And then we get in another shooter there. But the thing with Embiid, you mentioned he had 49 points a few weeks ago. Then 1 or 2 games later, they lose to the Cavs and he gets injured. And that's the problem. He's like a sine graph. It's up, it's down, it's a roller coaster ride. I don't want a roller coaster ride if I'm a contending team. I want to know what I'm getting, and I know what I'm getting in Ben Simmons, especially if we go to the Milwaukee Bucks model, what they've done with Giannis Antetokounmpo. You mentioned it's a shooter's league. Now, Simmons is not a shooter, as you said, but we're going to surround him with shooters just like the Bucks did with Giannis, an athletic attacker who can't shoot, surrounded by shooters. Simmons creates three-pointers with his passing. And I look at the Bucks. Their talent they're not as talented as the Pacers. I don't think they're not as talented as the 76ers. They're not as talented as the Rockets, but they have the best record in the league by far. That system, I think we've seen it work tremendously. Even if you don't have the top end talent, you get big attacker and shooters. We got Simmons and we got shooters and we got a championship headed to Philadelphia. There we go. Money right there.
I found it very interesting how you mentioned Al Horford. Al Horford, you said you're looking to him to be stretch 5 in your small ball lineup as a contender. Al Horford is 33 years old. Next year he'll be 34. You're going to have a 34-year-old center as one of your better players in the lineup, looking for him to be like one of the guys you go to down the stretch for, like, he's one of your guys you have in the clutch. I don't like that. I think you have to go with Embiid.
Would we prefer Embiid, who's tired, who doesn't play at the end of games, he's out of conditions, half the time he's not on the court because he's injured? I don't think that's the guy I want closing the games.
Is Simmons your closer then? You're going to have Simmons go and try to get a layup in the last second of the game?
His passing is going to be my closer. His passing to the perimeter threats.
So you want a 3-and-D role player taking that final shot in the playoffs. You want Simmons to drive and kick it out to a role player. So a closer is your role player.
I'm fine with Tobias Harris taking that shot, but Embiid doesn't shoot it either. He's going to be. We see at the end of the games, he's exhausted, he's worn out, he's not in shape because he can't practice because he's injured. And that's the up and down, the roller coaster ride. You are taking me on, Jake, with that, taking Embiid on your team. That's why I want Simmons.
You also mentioned the Sixers' identity crisis, how they are a team of length and size. And then you tell me you want to trade Embiid and go small? That doesn't add up to me. You think the Sixers should just completely change how they play the game right now, how people look at them and view them to be a title contender? You think they should flip that to the opposite and go as a small ball team?
Well, they're not a title contender as you established in the opening. And if we look at our small ball roster, Horford at the 5, Harris at the 4, we got a shooter at the 3, a 3-and-D kind of guy. We have Richardson and Simmons. We got a lot of length. We got defense. We got, and also we get first-round draft picks or whatever we get along with the Embiid trade. That's a pretty tremendous roster to me.
Okay, fine. I'll give you that. I'm not saying I agree, but I'll give you it. We move on. You mentioned the Bucks. You say you want the Sixers to model their lineup kind of as the Bucks have modeled their own and are having a very successful season. That is centered around an MVP, a league centerpiece, someone who's going to be a legend, maybe a top 10 player of all time. You think Simmons can control the offense and can control the game like Giannis does? Do you think he can be as dominant? Because I sure don't think so. I know Embiid, you give him the ball in the paint, he's a big, tall guy. I don't think that many people in the league can consistently stop him if you give him the ball in the paint possession after possession rather than on the three-point line possession after possession. Well,
nobody can stop Embiid. He stops himself. With the injuries, being tired at the end of the games, I see you smiling over there because I know I got you right there. It's hard for you to drink that water knowing that I got you on that point. But also, our centers, you mentioned the lack of center talent in the league. Is Jokic winning a title? No. LeBron, a two-way wing, is winning a title. Leonard, George, the two-way wings. Those are the guys that win you the titles, not the big men anymore in a shooter's league.
Well, that's why I think you have to pair Embiid with a second option, a good second option, a wing or a guard. But Simmons, he's so one-sided in the playoffs. You've seen him play against the Celtics a couple years ago. 1 point. He scored 1 point in the playoffs, and that's not the guy who I want leading my team deep into the playoffs.
Well, Jake,
I don't think Ben Simmons can be a number one option on a championship team like Embiid can.
Well, Jake, Embiid, in the game that Simmons scored 1, he was probably not playing because he's probably injured.
I mean, you say probably, but you don't know that. It's not like he was how he was in his rookie season. He's increasingly been playing more and more games.
He's injured as we talk.
Okay, but he's played the majority of the games this season. I don't think Simmons, however reliable he may be, consistently on the floor, he's not gonna win you a championship. He's not somebody that you go out there and say, okay, we got Simmons this week, we have to game plan for him. You game plan for Embiid. Embiid is their guy. I think they need to stick with their guns. I think they should keep Embiid, trade Simmons, get some good pieces, and reload for a title.
That's fair. That's fair. But just to close this out, I see a lot of similarities between Giannis and Embiid. Both have huge wingspan. I think Simmons is a little bit of a better ball handler, but Giannis is more of a physical freak. But Simmons, still, 6'10" at point guard. That's tough to stop. Ball handler, great passer, distributor, better than Giannis. Extremely athletic, has really big strides, can get to the rim. Not as easily as Giannis, but he can do some other things better. Overall, he's not the same guy as Giannis, but I think the Sixers can place more talent around him than Middleton and etc. with Milwaukee. Okay, now let's move on. Let's talk about Giannis and James Harden. Speaking of Giannis, he was attacked by James Harden the other day. Harden says, "I wish I could be 7 feet and run and just dunk. Like, that takes no skill at all." Jake, your reaction to this?
I think Harden's comments were 100% justified. I mean, it's All-Star Weekend. You're in Chicago. You're gonna have a great week. Giannis, before the week starts, he says he's in his draft with LeBron. Charles Barkley says, "What? You don't want the dribbler?" Giannis says, "I want someone who's gonna pass the ball." Clearly taking a shot at how Harden doesn't pass. May I remind you, Harden has led the league in assists in the past and currently is averaging more assists than the man that Giannis took in the draft, Kemba Walker. And then after the game, this is an all-star game. It's an exhibition game. It's not a playoff game. It's not even a regular season game. It's an all-star game. Giannis says, "We were going after whoever Harden was guarding." That is clear disrespect. If I'm playing pickup in the park or even on the driveway and someone says, "Give the ball to whoever Jake is guarding," I'm turning into an all-defensive player of the year. I'm turning into the best defender. You're not going to disrespect me like that. And that's just pickup basketball. This is NBA basketball. You're disrespecting a MVP. I think Harden's comments were more than justified. Harden has, like I said, he's an MVP. He's led the league in scoring the past 3 seasons. And when you're a player of Harden's caliber, one of the Tier A guys in the league, a Tier A superstar, you have to carry yourself with a certain pride. And like he said later in that interview, he said, "I believe I'm the best player in the league." You can't let somebody like Giannis disrespect you when yourself and your team are also competing for a championship just like him. Giannis, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't have anything over Harden at the moment. None of them have a championship. Both of them have an MVP. And Harden is just as good as Giannis right now. I think Harden just meant what he said, and I'm excited to see them face off in their next regular season game and maybe even finals.
Well, I think this is what the NBA needs. We need to get out of the soft age. We need to trend to that trash talk age where people actually are mad at each other, where it's not all buddy-buddy, let's work out in the summer. So I like to see this in general. Now, I think Giannis, when he made those initial comments about "I want a teammate that passes," first of all, we have to establish that English is not his first language. So, and I think that maybe he didn't understand exactly kind of the magnitude and the direct shot at Harden, what he was saying. I thought he was trying to say it in more of a joking way to kind of create some good TV, because that was a televised event, to kind of spice it up. Now, obviously, the claim was wrong. Harden does pass. But to bring up your point about Harden leading the league in assists multiple times, he does have the highest usage in the league. So having the ball more is going to result in more assists. And to comment about the All-Star game thing that Harden said after the game, that we're going to go at whoever Harden is guarding, I don't blame him. Now, should he have said it? Probably not. But on the other team was LeBron, Kawhi, Chris Paul, some other elite defender, Anthony Davis, as you say. So Harden was clearly the worst defender, and obviously that's going to be the game plan when you're against those 4 elite defenders. But do you say it? Probably not. And I like the mentality of Harden in this instance to really have the fight and drive and standing up for himself, to not let these comments just fade into reality, to really push back on those. And I'm excited to see the next time these two teams play.
I haven't seen this side of Harden yet, or at least in a very long time. And I think people forget, and even myself, I forgot this. Harden grew up in Compton, one of the hardest towns or hardest places probably to grow up in the world, in America. And growing up in one of those places, you have a dog to you that gets you out. And I think Harden's dog showed out here. And I want to see him have a couple statement games coming up just to prove himself. I am who I say I am. I am one of the best in the league. I deserve to be in the conversation, and I'm serious. I'm not playing. He said in the interview, he said, I don't see the joke. That when his interview with Rachel Nichols, he said, I don't get the joke. Like, I'm not laughing. I'm 100% serious. And I agree with that mentality with Harden. I think that's the killer instinct he has to have going forward. He has to view himself and go out every night and prove that he is one of the best to ever do it.
And you say we haven't seen this side of Harden. I agree with that. We haven't seen this side of Giannis either. Giannis has been all about being a nice guy, being a friendly guy. And we haven't seen this kind of, now we've seen him not want to work out with other stars, but we haven't seen this just aggressive attack, or not, I wouldn't say it's malicious, but it was a statement towards Harden.
There's a difference between competing and then like being outright like disrespectful. Mm-hmm. And Giannis is a competitor. He doesn't want to work out with his friends the off season. I can completely understand that. But then
I wouldn't want to work out with you in the off season. I mean,
okay, right, like you would even be in the same league. But
besides the fact we're on the same team for 3 years.
Anywho,
back in the day.
I can understand that competitiveness from Giannis, but again, like you said, this is a 100% different side of him. The disrespect he showed towards Harden, it was very uncharacteristic, and it was something that I didn't necessarily expect to hear, not surprised to hear. But I again, like you mentioned earlier, I like to see this kind of beef in the NBA. I think it makes it exciting, and like we said, I'm excited to watch going forward.
Yeah, so I think we both like this. Now, Giannis on the Bucks, Harden on the Rockets, both championship kind of contender guys. But we don't think that they're going to win it all. We think it's going to be decided in the Western Conference Finals between the Lakers and the Clippers. In that series, Jake, if the Lakers play the Clippers, who has the upper hand in 7 games?
I'm going with the King himself. I'm going with LeBron and the Los Angeles Lakers. And I say this because I do believe the Clippers have a more complete roster as a whole. Their bench is very strong. Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell, kind of corralling that unit. They score off the bench, Lou Williams. They have guys like Landry Shamet and just a more complete roster, like I said. But I believe the Lakers players know their role better. You have someone like Dwight Howard who comes in there. He plays defense. He gets rebounds. He gets blocks. And he's not necessarily worried about scoring the ball. He knows his role, and it's translated to a lot of wins for the Lakers. I think he's become a vital player in their lineup and someone that Frank Vogel can look to and say, our team's down right now. I need somebody to go in there and change the energy. You can throw in Dwight Howard in there, someone like that. And I think people forget how good LeBron is. Just because he had a down year last year, I don't like to bet against LeBron. We've seen him in the playoffs before, just dominant streaks. Dominant. Even 2 years ago with the Cavs, he didn't win the championship, but his run himself was just dominant, destroying the Raptors in 4 games when many people thought they were the real deal. Kawhi, yes, he has an exceptional, more than exceptional run last year. I don't think he's LeBron yet. And the Clippers' size is a concern for me. When the Lakers are rolling out AD and JaVale McGee or Dwight Howard, I don't think the Clippers can match up with that very well, and I think the Lakers can just pound them and kill them inside with even big wing players such as LeBron or Kuzma, who you can put out on the three-point line. And that's why I think the Lakers have the upper hand despite the Clippers' defense.
I agree with you. Now I think the Clippers have the perfect team to beat LeBron James. All their guys, I mean, basically their whole team is like 6'8" with 7'2" wingspan. They all play defense. They can all shoot it from downtown. I watch the Clippers. I literally don't know who's who because they all have the same body type, 6'8", 7'2" wingspan, play defense, play aggressive on that side of the ball. But LeBron James is LeBron James. This is the best player in basketball. He's a tier above everybody else. In fact, there might be a tier separating him and everyone else. He might be 2 tiers above everyone else. I'm not going to doubt him with arguably the best teammate he's ever played with, Anthony Davis. I think they have smart veterans, like you said, that know their role. And I really like the veteran approach with LeBron James. We're not going to have, quirky Lonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram there. We're going to get guys that have experience, that have made deep runs in the playoffs. And even with the Clippers, is there a little bit of tension? Because last year, they were the team that scraps, the grit and grind, and now they had 2 stars, and now they're like, we skip games, we don't play. It's a completely different world from they were in last year. They used to be underdogs, now they're favorites. They used to be scrappers, now they're sitter-outers. So there might be a little bit of tension there, but I am concerned with the fact that Clippers are up 2-1 the series, and in the fourth quarter, it's been Kawhi dominated.
Well, I think regular season LeBron and playoff LeBron is a very different beast, and I don't think the Clippers' tension will affect them. I think it's clear who the alpha dogs are on that team, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. I think the players that were there last year who grinded out and, like you said, were the grit and grind team, like a Memphis Grizzlies team, the underdogs. I think they're just fine with being the team that's supposed to win it and supposed to do what they need to do. But I don't know if I'm speaking for you, but definitely for myself. While I pick the Lakers, by no means do I think it's going to be a complete sweep. I think this series,
7 games. I
think it could definitely be 6, 7 games. With both teams being in LA, the home court advantage doesn't really matter. And it's not like just because LeBron has one of his best teammates ever and one of his best teams ever, it's not like the Clippers don't have an amazing team too. You got Kawhi, the reigning Finals MVP and champion. You got Paul George, who back in his Indiana days used to battle it out against LeBron in the Heat year after year. And you just have dogs like Patrick Beverley, Montrezl Harrell that'll go out and compete for you every single night. While I think the Lakers are going to pull it out when these teams face, if they face, by no means do I think it will be a sweep or a non-close match.
I'm with you. I think it's going to be an extremely tough series. I think both of these teams are a tier above the Bucks. I don't see the Bucks as near the contenders as I see these 2 teams. I think each team has a 40%, or I'll give Lakers 45% chance. No, that's probably too high. But really, I think it's a 2-way race, and then I think we give a little bit extra percentage to the other teams like the Bucks and
the Rockets.
Maybe Rockets, maybe. But we'll talk about them in a minute, how they're perennial playoff chokers. I'm already ready for you, Jake. I know you're going to back them. But here's the other thing. Who is going to guard Anthony Davis down low?
Again, that goes along with my point about the Clippers' size being a concern. And I wanted to mention that I believe the Lakers have the more dominant duo. I would take LeBron and AD over Kawhi and Paul George. Again, health concerns have been a problem for Paul George. And not so much.
And Davis.
And Davis, again, yes. But not so much Kawhi, not really LeBron. He did have his scare last season. But for the most part this season, he sat out maybe 1 or 2 games just for minor injuries, but I expect him to be 100% healthy come playoff time. Like we said, Anthony Davis has had his fair share of injuries, but I think right now Anthony Davis is far more healthy than Paul George. Paul George hasn't been playing at a Paul George level like he was the last year with the top 3 MVP candidate, and Anthony Davis is playing like an MVP candidate, along with the best player in the world, so that's a duo I'm taking over nearly any other duo that we could have seen in the league.
It's really nice to see that you're finally on the LeBron guy side. I remember I used to be kind of not anti, but just not a huge believer in LeBron. But now you've come to the right side, the correct side.
I understand LeBron's greatness now, and I want to see his legacy, just build on itself.
I like to hear that. I'm a fan of LeBron James too, because the difference between him and Leonard is the passing, the getting the teammates involved, elevating everybody around him. That's the LeBron factor in the playoff. Plus that, I mean, he's dominant in the clutch. We talk about, MJ, and he's not as clutch. The numbers say otherwise. Okay. So we were both going to take the Lakers in a very long series, very difficult series. But are the Rockets going to throw their hat in the ring? Are they going to be a contender? Jake.
You know me. I'm a big fan of the Rockets. I like what Mike D'Antoni is doing with the team. And as of late, I'm very impressed with Russell Westbrook's play. Now, in the past few years, I have not been on the Russ bandwagon.
We flip sides.
Not a fan of Russell Westbrook. But I've seen him play with James Harden. I've seen him fight in the small dog lineup. And I really like how the effort he plays with every night. And how he wants to go and get the win in the Rockets versus Kings game. Or a game that seems significant to him. And he goes out there and shows that every night. And after watching the Rockets expose defensive players of the year like Gobert, that's no joke. I think this lineup is very serious. It exposes people like that. Centers. You can't play centers against this lineup. Like I want to see them against the Nuggets. I want to see how Jokic is going to play. I don't see. He's definitely not guarding a Harden or Westbrook on the wing. They probably match him up against PJ Tucker. Again, he's still going to be exposed. He's slow. Even being one of the best centers in the league, I would take him on almost any team I'm making. He's going to be exposed, and that's why I think this Rockets team will be successful. Just because people haven't seen something like this before. They don't know how to stop it, how to attack it on defense. I think that's going to play to the Rockets' advantage. But another kind of concern I have with this ordeal is that they're putting a lot of pressure on PJ Tucker to play defense, to get rebounds, to protect the rim against big men. He's 6'5", playing center. That's not really a key to success for most teams. And like we said about how the Rockets expose people on offense, the game is two-sided. They have to defend too. And this, I think, is where having guards like Westbrook and Harden who can go after the ball and get rebounds is very, very helpful. Because in the past, in Russ's OKC days, you talk about, he's stealing rebounds from Steven Adams. He's stealing rebounds from Taj Gibson, whoever it is. Now they need those rebounds, and his rebounding numbers have not gone down one bit. I'm very impressed with that. When Westbrook and Harden are at their best, the Rockets are virtually unguardable. You can't. If you want to throw a double team at Harden, you give the ball to another MVP on the floor, and the middle is just wide open. The help defense for opposing teams, if they help, is a kick out for a corner three. You got PJ Tucker, who shoots one of the highest percentages in the league from the corner. But another concern I have along with PJ Tucker is if you want to watch Harden's highlights over the past 10 years, the other day I was watching Harden's best plays of the decade. A lot of them are off pick and roll lobs, just pick and roll plays, throwing it up to the big man, diming the big man on the roll. I'm worried that Harden is not going to have a Capella there to throw lobs to him when he gets into the paint. Just someone who can set a screen, roll. He has so many options, very difficult to guard. The Rockets got rid of that, and that was a huge factor in their offense. I think it's interesting idea by D'Antoni. I'm hoping for the Rockets to succeed. Realistically, I see them going against the Lakers or the Clippers in the semifinals. I see them falling in 6 to 7 games. Actually, I take that back. 5 to 6 games to one of those top dogs in the West. But again, you can't take them lightly. When you have 2 MVPs rolling out onto the floor with no help defense, that's a scary sight for the opponents.
I'm not going to take the Rockets lightly, but I'm not going to treat them like a championship team. We've seen this movie before. We've seen it. Last few years, Capella hasn't played in the fourth quarter. Did it mean they were some extravagant, new, fun offense? No, it didn't. Now, I know they have Westbrook now. They had Paul before. But is Russell Westbrook really that much better than Chris Paul? I don't think so. I don't buy it. And they lose Capella, so they lose that ability to have a pick and roll threat, as you mentioned, a guy that's going to be a lob threat in the dunker spot, a guy that's going to have the ability to defend an Anthony Davis, or a guy like that, much better than PJ Tucker. And they didn't really get much back. I mean, they got Robert Chisington in return, but he's all right. He's a two-way wing, but is he really going to be the difference in a Rockets playoff series compared to what happened before? No, he's not. And Harden and Westbrook are two perennial playoff chokers. They're the Lamar Jackson of the NFL, until Lamar Jackson proves me wrong. I'm not trying to, but it's stylistically similar. The game changes. It's a different season. It's regular season and it's postseason. There's 2 seasons. And back to the refs swallowing whistles, that's what happens in the playoffs. Harden relies on fouls. And also, if the refs swallow whistles, how are they going to get rebounds? You're telling me that PJ Tucker is going to get a rebound over Anthony Davis? Let's say Lakers on offense. LeBron shoots, misses. Who's getting the rebound? Anthony Davis. And it's not like PJ Tucker can do anything about it, because the refs are going to allow that physicality. Davis is going to throw him out of the way, dunk on him, and Lakers are going to win in 5 games.
The reason I disagree with you there, going back to the playoff choking part, in the past, teams have been able to double team Westbrook and Harden consistently, knowing they don't really have a serious second option, a second option you have to worry about. If you're playing the Rockets, you say, all right, Harden's not getting anything. We'll let Chris Paul do whatever he wants. In the past, we'll let him throw lobs to Capella. We'll let him do whatever. Now, you double team Harden, you got Westbrook on the other side of the floor. You double team Westbrook, you got Harden on the other side of the floor. I think this completely changes the game for them. And neither of these guys have had the luxury of being able to sit out the game and sustain a lead or grow a lead. Now they both have that, having the other one taking possessions on the court. I think that this playoffs is going to be a completely different animal than what we've seen from the Rockets in the past. And yes, Harden does rely on fouls. He's very hard to guard. He tends to draw fouls, and in the playoffs, refs, like you said, they choke on the whistle. I think that will become a problem for them, but I'm hoping that they can get over that hump, and that the 2 MVPs, Harden and Westbrook, will be able to still come out victorious in the playoffs.
Jake, you told me that Westbrook didn't have another player alongside him when he choked in the I'm not choked, but when he disappointed in the playoffs for the 3rd straight year last year. He had Paul George alongside him, who was a top 3 MVP candidate. You know? So, the narrative that now that they're going to have another serious guy to play alongside, he had Durant in the past, he had Harden in the past, and it didn't work. And he had PG-13 last year, who was an MVP candidate throughout the whole year, but they lost to the Portland Trailblazers in the first round of the playoffs. So, the fact that I'm going to believe this movie is going to be different, even though I've seen it 4 to 5 times before, I don't agree with that. So, I don't see the Rockets as a serious candidate. I don't think they're going to be able to get rebounds. I don't think that Westbrook can shoot. So I don't know if you have to double team him at all times. I know he can get around you, but if the refs swallow whistles, it's the playoffs. Is he going to get the foul? Is he going to be able to finish? Because we know he can't shoot it from outside. He might be the worst three-point shooter in the game, according to some of the metrics. And, I mean, Robert Covington, you get him for Capella? To me, that's not huge value. Now, I like the fact that they're committing to a certain identity. Like I mentioned with 76ers, they don't have an identity. Rockets at least have an identity, but I don't think it's a winning in the playoffs kind of identity.
You mentioned Westbrook's three-point shooting, and I 100% agree with you there. Westbrook is not a shooter. He never was. He needs to get to the rim, which doesn't fit the the Houston style that they've been playing with. They're a three-point shooting team. But now this small ball opens up the middle like Westbrook's never had before. And you've seen just in the past 10 games, he's been attempting a lot less threes and getting to the rim. His field goal percentage has shot up, and he's overall just been more successful. I think if he continues to attack the basket, he's very difficult to guard. He's very athletic, strong, muscular. His jumping ability is unlike most others. His ability to finish through contact. I think he needs to play to his strengths. Teams will dare him to shoot. I think he still has to attack, get downhill, and if he does that, I think he'll be just fine.
But you did say you thought they were going to lose in 5 or 6 to Lakers?
Yeah, I do believe that. I don't think they have the answer to LeBron or AD on the defensive end, despite their high power on the offensive end.
So we disagreed while at the same time agreeing. I didn't realize we were on first take. All right, as Jake attempts a water bottle flip, let's transition to this. Probably
Nice
a lot
intro, Evan.
Probably a lot of Wizards fans watching, listening, if anybody's listening right now. Bradley Beal, 2 consecutive 50-point games, both ending in losses. This is what I call a trap star. Bradley Beal, Karl-Anthony Towns, Devin Booker, and to some extent Kevin Love. These guys are all trapped in terrible environments. Now for Bradley Beal, I hate to tell a guy not to take $111 million, but he shouldn't have signed an extension in the offseason. He's with Washington, and they're plagued by the John Wall contract. John Wall's still not back. They have a lot of young guys, but just a lot of young guys who are like second-round picks that they've traded for. Nothing in Washington that's any good. They're not. I don't see them being a potential contender in the next 4 or 5 years. So I think Bradley Beal, if he wants to maximize this part of his career, because he's entering in his prime right now, I think he needs to ask for a trade. Now, for Karl-Anthony Towns, he just got his friend D'Angelo Russell traded to him. I have a strong opinion about this. That's a terrible situation. You have 2 buddies that are immature, an Embiid Simmons situation, but basically 2 Embiids. You have 2 guys that play a total of 0 defense combined. These are 2 of the worst defenders in the league. They haven't won a lot in their career. And this is just Timberwolves. They don't have much talent around. They're non-defending star buddies. I don't like this situation for Towns. Now, he likes it because he's happy because he has his best friend D'Angelo Russell there. But Karl-Anthony Towns is not going to have any kind of success in the next 4 or 5 years. Devin Booker with the Suns. My question is, when are they going to have their breakthrough season? Because with Phoenix, it seems like they always have a top 5 pick. They always have a fairly decent pick, the guy that they pick. And they come in, they win 2 more games than last year, and they started at like 20 wins. So now they're up to like 30 win pace. And this is clearly not working. I don't know what they need to do, because most of the time in NFL and NBA, we see these teams that have been rebuilding, like Sixers, trust the process, and finally they break through. But we haven't seen that with the Suns, and it seems like we should have had it by now.
Exactly, and I like how you mentioned Devin Booker as a trap star, and you mentioned Bradley Beal's 50-point games and losses. I was looking at a stat. Devin Booker holds the record for most points in a loss. 70 points. He scored his career-high 70 points and lost the game with the Phoenix Suns. This situation is no good, and I'll let you continue.
And my 4th trap star here is Kevin Love. Now, I don't think he's necessarily a star right now, but he's on the back 9 of his career. And he has 1, 2, maybe more years of effective basketball, and also the fact that he's on a big-time contract, that's going to make it more difficult to trade. But he's in the most dysfunctional environment in the NBA, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Without LeBron, they've literally done nothing. They can't get the coach right. They having some general manager owner issues. Nothing's been right ever since the few years that they had LeBron. They've been a complete disaster. They're the Cleveland Browns of the NBA, and both of the dysfunctional places are both in Cleveland. Don't know why.
I want to add 2 more stars to your list. These are a couple of young players, so I mean they haven't had to deal with their situation for a while. But by the looks of it, there's no end in sight to this, terrible record. I have first-time All-Star, NBA All-Star starter, Trae Young of the Atlanta Hawks. You see him consistently putting up ridiculous stat lines, 40 points, new career highs, the 3-pointers from the logo. He's somebody you have to guard 3 steps into the front court or into the half court. You have to have a hand up and on him because he will shoot and he will make it from there. And yet, despite his passing abilities and how difficult he is to guard, the Hawks aren't winning games. It's not translating to W's. And certainly, in my opinion at least, not Trae Young's fault. They have young pieces around him like Kevin Huerter, Cam Reddish. They just got Clint Capella. So I'm not too nervous. DeAndre Hunter, another one. I'm not too nervous about Trae Young's situation as of right now. But somebody like that, this is the recipe on how you lose a great player. On just not having the ability to surround him with the talent he needs to compete. But again, this is early on, so this situation could improve for Trae Young. But moving on to another player, he's been getting very visibly frustrated with his coach with the late game timeouts when the game is out of reach. Zach LaVine. He's been putting up incredible numbers. A player who won the dunk contest and was now entered in the 3-point contest. You've seen his games. He has games like against the Hornets early in the season. He has some ridiculous threes. Got his team the W, and he's consistently put up great stat lines. He wasn't an all-star this year. He was one of my snub picks, but the Chicago Bulls are really a mess right now. They have Kobe White, who's recently been putting up great numbers. They have Lauri Markkanen. I had high hopes for him coming into the league. I haven't heard barely anything about him this season, and it's all about Zach LaVine and the losses they're taking. I think that Zach LaVine needs to get out of Chicago. I think he needs a fresh start to his career if he ever wants to compete. I think he could definitely be a great third option on a championship team, like a part of a big three. Chicago is not his place.
I think Zach LaVine he's likely to ask for a trade this offseason. That's kind of the whispers in the bushes. Like you said, not happy with his head coach, Jim Boylan. But I agree that he should get a trade or should ask for a trade because he's been playing very well, and he will ask for a trade. But I don't think Trae Young's a trap star. I think no way, no how. He's in year 2. And you mentioned that they don't have winning basketball in Atlanta. He doesn't play winning basketball. He plays 0 licks of defense. And you can't win a title with your best player playing 0 defense unless you're the Golden State Warriors and you have all NBA defensive.
3 best players on your team.
Because it's very difficult to hide 1, and you can't hide 2 bad defenders in the NBA. I think it's kind of very similar to the Suns situation where they're constantly in the top 5 draft picks. They're always reloading with the draft picks, but they haven't had that breakout season. But they're in the East, so it's going to be easier to have that breakout season. And I think that, most times, like I said, we see that teams after, kind of trusting the process, we see them have that breakthrough. I think this is going to be different than the Suns, and the Hawks will eventually have a breakthrough in the next 2-3 years. So I don't think Trae Young is a trap star. These 2 guys are certainly stars, but they're definitely not trapped. Zion Williamson, Jason Tatum. Who would you rather start a franchise with today?
Now, when you posed this question to me before we started the recording, I could already tell this is going to be very difficult to pick an answer.
I don't have an answer. I need you to convince me one way.
Both have positives, pros, and cons, and I'm going to talk about some of them. Maybe we can discuss and see if we can come out with a definitive answer. Now, first of all, I just want to mention, I really wasn't a big fan of Tatum in the beginning of this year, even his previous years. But I watched his game against the Lakers where he went off for 40 points. I really like what he's been doing post All-Star break. As for Zion, I love Zion's energy, and his presence on the court already is changing the game for the Pelicans. His presence relates to wins, and you can see that. Since he's come back, the Pelicans have been making a strong push for the 8th seed. And you can never go wrong with a winning player, a player that just can go out on the court, play with energy, play with effort, and get you wins. A con with Zion, though, I am not sold on his health. He's been in the league for, 3/4 of a season, and he didn't play the first 2/4 because of some injury. He's had that major injury and a number of minor injuries already in the season. I don't want to see this trend continue. I'm nervous that it will with his weight. Some reports say he's over 300 pounds. And if he weighs that much and it's not affecting him, that's fine. But it is affecting him. We've seen his injuries. So that's a big concern for me. And a concern for Tatum is I'm not sure how he would function as a number one option for a full season. We've seen spurts. We've seen against the Lakers. Kemba was out. He took over the game. We saw him in the playoffs a couple years ago. Kyrie was out. He played exceptional. But for an 82-game season, do you think he could be your go-to guy? I don't know. I really don't know. And it's the same for Zion. They don't really have a go-to guy on the Pelicans right now. I've Brandon Ingram. Certainly, he's one of their best. But now that Zion is back, I don't know who's the number one option. Who's their closer? It could be Zion. It might not be. I don't know how he would function as the number one option either. Some questions about Zion's shot and how effective he will be come playoff time is very interesting.
Yep.
We've seen people like Simmons get shut down in the playoffs. We've seen teams game plan for guys like Giannis. Could they do the same with Zion? He's definitely not afraid to shoot the three. He is willing. He can knock it down sometimes. Certainly not a strong spot. I'll give him the three. So will he be turned, away come playoff time? Will he kind of fade? We've seen Tatum already prove himself and show that he does not shut off during playoffs, despite not having made it to the finals. He doesn't fade away either. He shows up every playoff game. He doesn't put up LeBron numbers. Again, he's young. We haven't seen him at his full strength in the playoff. I think he's just he's not coming into his prime, but he's improved from last season. I would like to see him in the playoffs this year. But overall, who would I pick? On my notes right now, I have Zion. I said I will go with Zion, but I could be persuaded. I think I just persuaded myself. I'm actually switching my answer to Tatum. Again, I could be persuaded. Zion is the number one pick. There's a reason for all his hype around him. He's only played a certain amount of games in the league. Never mind. I'm going back with Zion. Just what Zion has been doing.
Jake strong with his take here.
What Zion has been doing in this little time is exceptional, and I think if he can continue to build upon his strong base that he already has, I think he's going to be a player you're going to have to look out for the next decade.
So, Jake, could you read again your biggest concern with Tatum?
My concern with Tatum is how he will function as a number one option for an entire season.
Take that off the list. Because when he has been the go-to option, we see when Walker's out, 40 points against the Lakers and LeBron. When Kyrie was out in the 2 playoffs ago, when they played LeBron's Cavaliers, dominant.
82-game season is different than a couple of games here and there.
But he's going to
have to be the guy every night. And with being the guy, teams game plan for you. Teams go after you like they do when they play against Harden, when they play against guys like Luka. I do you think he can be that guy for the full season? I'm not sold on it.
Well, I'd say 100% of the time he has been the guy. He's been pretty great. So I have no reason to say he can't be the guy over full season. Plus, he's only, 20? I don't even think he can drink yet. So to already be the guy candidate at 20 years of old, age, very impressive. He doesn't have the injury issues. He's a better shooter. And also, with Tatum, he's a two-way wing. I mentioned this earlier. Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James. The two-way wings, guys that small forward, small forward, shooting guard, guys that are on the wing, guys that defend. Those are guys that are winning you championships. Durant, Thompson. But, jump in.
Well, I want to mention Tatum is 21. Not that big of a difference from 20.
Okay, so we can have a not your father's.
That is true. You can have an alcoholic beverage, but Zion is 2 years removed from having an alcoholic beverage, 19. So he does have the advantage there. You're getting 2 more years of molding in Zion. So, but as you're talking about the 3-and-D or the defensive, the two-way wing, Zion is a two-way player himself. He plays defense. You've seen how he emphatically swats the ball into the stands. People, I feel like, are scared sometimes to go in there and get swatted away by him. He's muscular on offense. He's muscular on defense. He's not the two-way wing, but he's most certainly a two-way player, and he can play both sides of the ball at a very high, a very strong pace right now, and I don't see that stopping as he goes into his prime.
Yeah, I mean, he's really more of a two-way 4/5 hybrid transition 5. A new position created by Zion Williamson himself. He's more athletic, and you just watch the Pelicans and you just say, "Come on now." I mean, what am I watching? I mean, this is a physical freak.
You've seen him bully Steven Adams out of the way and rip the ball out of grown men's hands like it was nothing. I mean, this guy is, I feel like, a lot bigger and stronger than people give him credit for, like, on the TV.
I mean, when Pelicans are on, they're the 9 seed or 10 seed, whatever. But I want to watch their games because I want to see Zion Williamson play on the basketball court. So I think this is an extremely difficult decision. One hand, we have the athletic freak who's had injury problems. The other hand, we have the two-way wing. The guy, he's already shown that he can be a number 1 option, even though Jake doesn't think that or thinks it might be a concern. Better shooter, doesn't have injury issues. But the Zion factor is real. Let me just answer the question by saying I'd be very happy to start a franchise with either one of these guys. Now, what if I throw in Luka Doncic?
This is a very easy choice for me. I'm going with Luka. First team All-NBA. He goes out and plays big every night. He competes with the best in the league. I think he's going to be a future legend, top 25 player, top 30 player of all time. I think he's got that type of potential.
So, those 3, you'd order Luka.
Zion is 2A and Tatum is 2B.
I think I'd go the same way. Just slight lean towards Zion, just because I watch the game. I don't know what to say. I don't have words for this on this podcast. But Luka, for me, he's a knockdown shooter, and it's a shooter's league. And I think he has similar qualities as Tatum. Now, with Luka, I worry because he already had professional basketball experience when he was coming into the draft, and he's not known as like a super athlete. I felt that his floor was very high, but his ceiling was lower, just because he's already kind of more well fine-tuned, more rounded, and he doesn't have that athletic prowess that a Zion has.
Well, he's putting up 25-plus points per game every night. His athleticism doesn't seem to be bothering him very much.
Just in terms of the trajectory, can he have a drink? I don't know if
Luka Doncic, I believe.
Is he 21 probably?
I believe his 21st birthday was yesterday. Oh, so he can have a drink.
Well, so with Zion, we look at just a straight up. So Y equals 10,000 on the graph. Tatum, we look at a similar thing. Luka, I think he's more towards that 10,000 right now, but I don't think his arc will be as drastic. I think he's kind of near his ceiling, even though he's so young.
I'm not sure I agree with you there. Luka is younger than Tatum, and he's younger than Tatum by a number of days, but I think he is vastly better as of right now. And I think his ceiling is just as high as as Tatum. I won't say as Zion.
I think the ceilings are very similar. Tatum and Doncic, but I think Doncic is most of the way there. So I'm just saying that we shouldn't expect just a rapid growth upwards.
Now I have a question for you. Do you think any 3 of these guys will be winning an MVP award?
Yes, all 3.
You do.
I'll give Luka 1. I'll give Zion 1. It's going to be difficult on Tatum. I think that's closer. Ooh. I think all three definitely have a very solid chance to win MVP. I don't know if I'd put money on it. On Tatum. I think I'd put money on Zion and Luka.
Yeah, I agree.
And as we know, like the best player, it's a narrative story award. Best player doesn't always win. We saw Drew Brees not win the award. I mean, and we saw him get robbed due to narrative. We saw Russell Wilson this past season get robbed due to narratives, due to the storylines.
In NBA terms, we've seen LeBron James, who's
he
be
should,
the most valuable player every
he
single
should
year.
have 13 MVPs. And this is not exaggeration. He's been in the league 17 years, probably four exceptions. Probably shouldn't have been last year.
Definitely not last year on a non-playoff
And
team.
Even though he didn't make the playoffs, I say he probably shouldn't have made it. I mean, that's just how dominant. We look at the numbers, we look at all that, but LeBron's impact, his output, cannot be put on a spreadsheet. No doubt about that. LeBron really has 13 MVPs in my opinion. I don't care who actually wins the MVP. Useless award to me, but I think all three of these guys have a chance at getting it. Anyway, this has been the In2sports podcast. I've been joined by Jake today. Some great topics we went through. I hope you enjoyed. Any last words?
Nope. Nothing to say.
All right. Thank you for watching, listening. I'm House 7. I'm out. Peace.
Peace.